Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and the project that I'm working on now is making the wood underliner that you're gonna see when you go to the Mexican restaurant and you order fajitas, and that cast iron griddle comes out so hot that it's impossible to touch that. But there's always a piece of wood the griddle sits on. So what we're making actually is 50 of those underliners. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, we are now very much nearing the end of this project. The last of this material turned out to be, we're done. This is the third and final sheet. We'll be able to get the sanding completed tomorrow and the staining, and everything will be in really good shape for the client. Sanding takes longer than I would like, and typical sanding, the more time that you put into it, quite frankly, just simply the better it looks. I would like to be able to do these out of solid lumber. The issue with that would be, of course, the cost. So we will look at the finished project when done. A lot of elbow grease has gone into this piece that I'm holding, and it's really nice. So the last parts, I'm going to pull them off now and just stack them for sanding. Here's what I've learned. First of all the tabs broke. I don't know about all of them, but I think that all the ones I've inspected broke. So yeah, that's broken. Now, yeah, they've all broken. So what I did was I changed the tab width from 5/16 to 1/4 inch. So I'm definitely going to put that back to how it was. The reason it's not a big deal is, as we were done with this entire line and then coming back up this way, I wanted to be able to start pulling the pieces off, but with the vacuum on, there's just no way of pulling them off. These underliners are fixed down when that vacuum is running, so there was no realistic way to pull it off. Something has changed. I've cut far deeper into my material than I did previously, and I don't know why. That's why the tab broke. I didn't realize that till I just pulled this off. I don't know why I went so much deeper. I'll study the tool path. Obviously, that's the final profile on bottom. Yeah, the pieces look good. I mean, there's no deviation. Yeah, getting down to it, it's now just going to be a matter of sanding, cleaning, and staining. Okay, now, the one that we watched forever, that logo looks pretty nice. That'll be the one that the client gets, just so that they know that we can put the logo on there. We've got our little website address on there. You can barely see it's there. It's not going to last very long. But there you go. Would obviously have to tweak that because we lost some of the detail with the parts coming out. What would I do? I'd probably use my 1/16 of an inch down O-flute down spiral and see if that gave us a better ability to hold these pieces in, because we're not pulling up, we're pushing down the action of the bit. But at the end of the day, we're going to pull these off and we're just going to put them in sand, and we will pick up with the sanding at that point, and we're in the home stretch. So what we're doing now is we're moving on to go through our final checks to find out where our planning deviated. We cut much deeper into the spoil board than what had been anticipated. It's a spoil board, no big deal, but that was not the plan. Also, why we were clearly not shifted correctly, and I have an idea about that. I think when I altered the offset in the array, I may not have had any tool paths selected or just one. Something was off, so we're going to investigate that. I also wanted to mention that I had time to think about pulling the pieces off as the tool is progressing. Pull the pieces off, get them pulled off, get them to the next step, perhaps start sanding them. The issue is the two vacuum pumps were so severely effective at holding the workpiece down that you're not able to pull them off. So in the overhead view, you might notice I was trying to work the compacted chips, dust around the perimeter. And I realized later, the reason it's not moving voluntarily is because the vacuum pumps are on. It's literally taking the dust and sucking it down. And I realized, oh, I really want that there. until I'm done because it's providing better overall vacuum. So the concept of pulling them off is just not realistic. Or going with pure mechanical hold down. The issue with that is there's going to be a belly, a cup, or a bow in the workpiece. Right now, I just don't see it happening. I think we're just going to have to stick with what we're working on in terms of pulling them off accordingly. In fact, it's actually possible that we don't need the mechanical clamps at all. I'd like to try that. I was trying to gauge with my hands on the workpiece how much lateral load was how much force was being pushed into the work as a result of doing the 3/8 compression fit profile cut. How much of it is all moving piece? It didn't seem like we were going to lose anything in terms of piece moving. So we might just rely purely on vacuum next time, no mechanical clamps. There's all these, it's optimizing the tool path, right? Optimizing the tool path has everything to do with, do I have to do that step? This is just unnecessary. Those clamps may be unnecessary. We do know that the tabs fail because the cut was so much deeper. Some things that we're going to have to look for moving forward, we'll talk about that. Let's switch to the screen view and let's look at our tool path and try to discover what exactly caused those two little blips. What you're going to see now is just footage of us going through the hand process of sanding, preparing, and staining the underliners. Is what you'll see next, and keep moving on. we've seen some video of just brute force staining the material, and we've gone through a little bit of cleanup here. Here again is the original, that's what we're matching, and we'll take that with us over to where we have just taken the 50 underliners and just laid them out so they could just sit and dry. And about 48 hours would be a really good time for me to feel comfortable to go about shipping them. And that's what we're going to do. Let's take, I happen to know that this one has the logo on it. They feel still just as if they need another day to be ready to go. At the end of the day, you know, it's a very utilitarian type of piece of hardware. Not a big deal of what's happening here. So they'll ship tomorrow. Now, what I've realized is what I don't care for this design, and, you know, never having thought of making these in the past, this is a design that could be better. And what I mean by that is they don't stack. So, you know, I've been a busboy like everybody else has been a busboy in life, and you're just throwing stuff, you're just trying to survive the shift. And these don't stack. They don't nest, they don't stack. And that's because of the profile of the bottom. And we're going to create a series of these that can be nested or stacked, because I definitely can see how someone's going to grab one of these and just throw it up on the shelf, and it needs to kind of nest together, just like plates do. I'm not sure if the cast iron that will sit into this nests or stacks, but we're going to make these such that they will stack, or at least offer that as an option, I should say. So moving forward, we're going to move to just a summary and then conclude this video, and let's just wrap this up. Thank you. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So at the end of the day, I'm pleased with how the project turned out. The example here, certainly no problem with that. There's a lot more happening here than what would seem to be happening. Lots of tool paths. There's chamfering the outside, scoring the veneer. There's pocketing. There is the ball nose. There's our little tiny logo there, which was just whatever. There's the big V bit that we did. There's the client's logo if they want. And then there's the final liberating pass from the sheet. That would make 8 tool paths for sure. What I can tell you now that I'll be doing to improve this is I'm going to order a 1-inch ball bit or drawer bit, or it might be called a box bit. It's just 1 inch and will give me a much more faithful sort of radius here compared to the original that we were copying. 3/4 ball is the biggest bit that I could get my hands on. It's a tighter radius than what's on the original, slightly. Doesn't affect anything in the sense that if it was a bigger radius, it would be an issue, but I've, you know, kind of removed less material, so if anything, it'll fit in a little bit looser. The stacking I had just mentioned earlier, I'm going to make a version of these that will stack. I would definitely want to be able to stack these. Otherwise, there's no elegant way to kind of keep them together. In terms of the options, you know, there's a category structure to what you're dealing with. That's going to be wood type, whether it be plywood or solid wood, different species, different veneers on plywood, different species of wood. All of it's possible. I would really rather be doing them out of solid wood because it would give a much better effect. Obviously, stains. This happens to be just a exterior grade cherry stain. You know, whatever stain the manufacturer makes, I can get. If you like Minwax, well, whoever I like is what we'll offer. But standard different colors, clear. You know, your light oak, your red oak, your dark oak, ebony, cherry, walnut stain, glossy finish can be done as well. Maybe stuff more appropriate for exterior use. Maybe some sort of a marine grade clear polyurethane. That can be done, obviously, with and without logos. That logo took 1 hour and 10 minutes to cut that. So that is a work in progress. I would not go as deep. I don't know how deep that is, but I won't go as deep next time. It took forever. I used the 1/16th ball nose bit, so the tool had to really, really, really spend a lot of time carving that because not only is it a really tiny diameter bit, but it's a ball nose on the bottom so that the gantry was moving, as you saw earlier, in just very small dimensions. It took forever. It looks really nice, and I wanted a higher definition rate than what a bigger bit would kind of give me, but it looks really, really nice. The problem with the depth is we did lose some pieces here. You know, I'm envisioning that these are never going to go into a washing machine, but they're going to be wiped down. And I don't want the cloth to grab any of these laurel leaves that are here and pull that off. Maybe what you would do is just stick to this kind of logo moving forward. It's a lot more durable. There's big solid pieces here that aren't going to unintentionally come off. I've mentioned the stacking, the non-stacking, and then of course sizes. This just happens to be that part number of Tomlinson originally who offered this, who no longer offers it. It just opens up a world of, okay, what size do you need? Now that we understand the process, now that we understand kind of what it takes to make one that passes as reasonable. We kind of have an understanding of if I were to change this, all I would really be doing is redrawing vectors, but my toolpaths are all the same. Speaking of that, what will I do moving forward? I'm going to put a little heavier chamfer on here. I'll go a little bit deeper because I was noticing in sanding, they were spending a lot of time sanding this, and there was a lot of time spent sanding. And I'm going to investigate ways to more automate that process. A sister video or a spin-off video that's being created is my vacuum, not my Becker pump vacuum, but my dust vac toolpath. I'm creating a toolpath so I can just run it and have it pick up all the particulate because you heard me mention many, many times how much sawdust was left on the table. It's going to end up in the atmosphere. It's going to end up getting blown, fall on the floor. It's going to end up getting tossed into the atmosphere and then ultimately into the lungs. Looking into automating somehow to make the job easier of sanding. It took a lot of work to just sand that, and part of it's because it's plywood. Part of it would certainly be because that's an up spiral ball bit that's here in this inside area. Took a lot of sanding. The bottom didn't obviously take much, but anywhere where we're cutting, and I had mentioned earlier, it'd be nice if there was a down cut V bit. Of course, I think when you think about what the shape of that bit would have to look like, it'd be one heck of an exotic bit. Um, to down spiral and V. Maybe as a single flute, it would be possible to create such an animal. What other changes would I make? We were able to squeeze the maximum amount, I believe. I don't think there's any way to optimize how many can be pulled off of a sheet of 4x8 plywood. We're getting 18 out of a 4x8 plywood. You'll recall that I discovered where the minimize tool change setting was. That would have made the runtime. That last sheet with the logo was probably about 6.5 hours. So I'm imagining that we are going to substantially reduce that amount of time. I'm going to run one more sheet because I want to tweak some of my tool paths. And I want to isolate certain processes and capture them, but I'll also know how long it's going to take to make an entire sheet, or at least have a better idea. So that scale factor, that when you're computing runtime in vcarve, can help determine what scale factor would be more appropriate for that sort of job. Making a model that's going to stack, I'm going to really need to create on the bottom of our unit here. We're going to have to pocket this out. Well, it'll be V cut, but we'll have to pocket some of this out so that it can rest inside of here. So frankly, the vector for the pocketing will have to be duplicated on what would be the bottom side. This vector and this vector will have to be superimposed, and we'll want to go in and pocket out the area between all of that is what we'll do. Selecting two vectors. I will have to investigate how to do that, but that's the idea of what we need to do. Two vectors, pocket. If I have a donut, a 3-inch diameter and an 1.5-inch diameter nested in it on the same datum, how do I pocket everything between the 3 and the 1.5-inch border? We'll have to investigate that. Learning that running the preview in VCarve is really important because had I done that, I would have seen that forgotten about toolpath on the bottom of the sheet. Because if you recall, this project started out as a two-sided project. And then when I bumped into the issue of needing to do array copy toolpath and doing it in a two-sided environment, I was getting it flipping over really odd. I think obviously there's an elegant way to do it. Probably starting the drawing out with the datum right in the center is what would have solved that. I'm sure that it would. So what we obviously ended up doing to just keep moving was put all of the vectors on one face, on one side, selecting those vectors that are at the top, flipping it over on our asymmetrically positioned dowel rods, asymmetric from either end, but absolutely balanced off of a center line down the x-axis. So you can take and do this all day long, but you couldn't do this because it wouldn't fit back down into the dowel rods. That worked out perfectly. And frankly, when I spoke to ShopBot, he says the easiest way that I do it, and then he explained to me, I would just draw them and just flip it over and select those vectors. And yeah, it worked fine. It's just I need to be able to do it in a two-sided environment and let the software do the work, because it will also make my previewing better and it will make my drawing look nicer. I don't want to see all these vectors on one side that aren't on one side. So we're going to learn more about that as we go along. Continuing to learn the software to utilize its functionality to serve the requirements of the job is what I'm driving at. So pretty thrilled about that. It was fun finding that logo online and then just importing it as a bitmap, a little birdie that's in VCarve. Is how you do that. I've watched some videos on that and it didn't seem terribly difficult. But I have spoken to Chris Burns about doing that work, and he has told me that there have been times he has spent hours cleaning up vectors, and I'm not interested in doing any of that. The reason is because this is not something that I'm going to tell the market what they're going to pay for when it comes to these, unless they maybe someday they'll quit serving fajitas the way that they're currently served. But yeah, spending time cleaning up vectors won't be the idea. There is going to be a short version of this video that won't really use any of this content that I can tell, but you won't have to watch the several episode version. You can just watch the short little version that we'll have going on this. By all means, if you have recommendations of, hey, Rich, you could have made it a lot easier on yourself, please let me know. I'm learning like everyone else, whether it's CNC or it's locksmithing. I happen to spend time in the world of locksmithing, and it's a journey. It's not, a place where you arrive at and then you're done. It's forever a journey of learning. So I would really appreciate benefiting from your input, positive and constructively negative, if you would, to tell me how you might go about doing it. Turns out these things exist. When I spoke to Aaron initially at ShopBot, he's like, oh yeah, I've done those projects before. Like, okay. So they're pretty common. The spoil board still looks like in good shape, even though we pierced through it to the tune of about 5/16. It's fine. It's a spoil board. I was initially, when I first started, I didn't want to really have to deal with changing the spoil board, but I've put my big boy pants on and realized, well, that ain't nothing but a thing. So we'll certainly make a video over that. I appreciate you following along with this project on making these underliners, and hopefully the next project is not for 50, but for 5,000. It's just nice to be able to set the tool up and kind of do other stuff while it's working. And thank you very much. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.